Good evening, boys and girls. Welcome back for Expeditions. We're super excited. I know some of you will get to come to church tonight for Expeditions, but some of you won't. So Peter and I wanted to make sure you still got to hear your Expeditions lesson. Peter and I were talking about some things that we remember. We were talking about some fun things that we've done. Yeah, Peter and I, we saw those planes. Did you boys and girls see those planes? And we posted our pictures in the video clip there on Facebook of those planes we saw. We remembered that. And Peter and I remembered that we got to hide those Easter eggs for you kids. And that was fun too, even though we couldn't have the in-person Easter egg hunt. And there's lots of things to remember. Peter is ready for church tonight. Peter remembered his Bible and he remembered his Expeditions book, and Peter is ready for church. Do you remember your Bible when you come to church? Are you going to remember to bring your Expeditions when you come? Can you remember our key word? How many times can I use the word remember in this opening? At least that many. All right, remember to remember.
All right, so there you go. That is our key word of the night, remember. Our lesson tonight is going to be slightly different as we work through our Expeditions book. It's actually going to look at an animal. Now, some of you love animals. Some of you are really key on studying out animals. Maybe you want to be like a veterinarian or a zoologist, or maybe just like a hunter or a fisher because you like the way they taste. Okay, but animals are pretty cool things to study. Our God has created a vast array of animals to display His power and His magnificence. But when you think about the word remember, is there a specific animal that comes to mind? I'll give you a second to think on it, to ponder, all right? It's kind of big, like it's bigger than Pastor Josh, which is most animals. It's got a bit bigger of a nose than Pastor Josh has, like a really long one. Have you figured it out yet? Yes, an elephant. Okay, an elephant is known as a type of animal that remembers. Okay, the slogan is that an elephant never forgets. All right, an elephant remembers everything. Why? Because our God created it that way to help it survive in the wild. Now, we as human beings, we kind of maybe tend to forget things, like maybe when mom and dad give instructions and we maybe kind of forgot what they said. And we tend to not remember things unless they're like really, really important. We're going to focus on this is how we remember it. I want to look at here a couple stats and statistics and information, some facts that'll blow your mind on how amazing these elephants' remembering skills are. But then I'm going to talk about what is important for us as humans to remember. All right, what God created us to remember. So once again, as we look at this, remember the missionary we've been studying this year, Adoniram Judson, spent time in the country of Burma. And in Burma, they have Asian elephants. All right, elephants are cool animals. I don't know for you whether it's one of your favorites or not, but they're a really cool animal to look at. So here's just some statistics, some facts, some really cool, amazing things to learn about elephants. First of all, adult Asian elephants can grow to be 9 or 10 feet tall. So you think if you play basketball and you're shooting and you're trying to hit the rim, okay, or maybe you're like really tall and can dunk, okay, all right, other than like dunking Oreos, which is what I like to do, all right, or going to Dunkin' Donuts. But the elephant, if he were to walk in a basketball court, he'd hit his head on a basketball rim. That is how big and massive these animals are. Okay, they can weigh, ready for this? I know it's going to be a shocker. Okay, they can weigh up to 11,000 pounds. That is huge. That is a massive animal. If one of those stepped on your foot, you would be crying in pain. All right, they are massive animals. So much so that it is said that it is impossible for an elephant to jump. I don't know how you can imagine like an elephant trying to jump off the earth. If you were to land, you'd probably like start an earthquake or something. Okay, they just can't do it. Elephants have long tusks, okay? They're tusks that grow out. Okay, they can grow up to be 5 feet long. I'm trying to think of like how tall is 5 feet? Yeah, it's about right here. Okay, 5 feet long, okay, is the size of the longest elephant tusk that they can have. All right. Like we are right-handed or left-handed, okay? An elephant is actually right tusk or left tusk, okay, depending which one they're going to choose to use. Elephants use their trunks for snorkeling while swimming. They can actually go under the water completely, but put their nose up above the water, okay, and they can hide under the water with just their nose out. It's kind of cool. I don't know if you've ever been able to go snorkeling before, or like you have maybe a brother or sister who's been snorkeling, and then you kind of like plug their snorkel hole, or you just push the snorkel underwater, and then they start choking, and you laugh. Yeah, we kind of do that to be fun with our siblings, all right? But they use their trunk to pick things up. It's powerful enough to kill a lion or to pull a tree out of the ground. God designed elephants in an amazing way. However, their trunk doesn't work completely like a straw. Air can go through it, but they don't drink with their trunk. They actually suck water up into it, but then they squirt it into their mouth, and they actually drink the water through their mouth. Their trunk is able to smell things. Okay, they have the ability to smell water. Remember, they're on the African plains or in Asia there in the jungles. They can smell water from up to 3 miles away. I think the only thing I can smell 3 miles away is either a skunk or when Chicken Shack is making chicken. I think those are the only things that I can smell from 3 miles away, but they can smell water. And some of us are like, water has a smell? They can smell water from 3 miles away. The elephant has the ability to spray dirt on its back to keep bugs off and to keep from getting sunburned. Now that it's getting warmer out and sun's out, okay, you're probably going to get some sunburns this summer from the beautiful sun. Elephants drink in a day, this is going to amaze you, in a day they drink about 50 gallons of water. That is a lot of water, okay? And they eat about 400 pounds of food. Okay, to put that into perspective, that'd be like if you were to try to eat 800 hamburgers. Okay, that's a lot of food. Okay, however, okay, and they spend 16 hours a day eating, but one thing that elephants actually don't eat, unless you watched a TV cartoon about it, but it's actually not real, they don't eat peanuts. Elephants communicate, they use their trunks to communicate. They can hear each other, an elephant trumpet call up to 5 miles away. If you were to get close enough to an elephant, you actually find out that they purr kind of like a cat does. An elephant's feet can feel rumbles made in the ground when another animal is nearby. Elephants, okay, elephants actually, a baby elephant, okay, kind of cute little baby elephant, they actually suck on their trunk like we would suck on our thumbs, okay, so a baby elephant will do that. Elephants will form tight circles around the young and the old in order to protect them when attacked by a predator. A charging elephant can kill a rhino or a hippo. If it were to hit a train, it would actually knock the train off its tracks. But what I really want to think through is how great and amazing God designed their memories and how well they can remember. We know from different scientific studies of elephants that they can remember places where they have found food or water years into the future. They can remember an elephant that they may have met years ago and never seen again, and then they meet him and they're like, oh, I remember you. Okay, kind of like when mom walks through the grocery store and she sees someone she went to high school with, and like they stand there and talk for 30 minutes, and you're kind of like, Mom, I want to get home. All right, an elephant can remember. They even remember exact spots where another elephant has died, and they go and they remember them there. A few weeks ago, when we were in quarantine, I was watching a Netflix show on animals, and one of the things it talked about was elephants and how the elephant had been to a specific spot where there was water when it was a child. It was now the leader of its group years later, and they were in the middle of a drought, and it took its entire family back to that place that its parents took it when it was young. That's how well an elephant can remember. But as we said earlier, occasionally we as humans tend to forget. We tend to forget things that happen unless it's like really important. So the Bible actually talks about ways that we can remember. There's something that the Israelites did in the Old Testament that might shock you. One of my favorite Bible characters to study is, you know who it is, I've said it many times before, is Joshua. I love studying Joshua kind of because he has a cool name, all right, but also just because of what God was able to do with him. We always think about when we think of Joshua, we think of the 12 spies and singing the song, 12 men went to spy on Canaan. But not only that, Joshua got to lead the Israelite nation into the promised land. What God had promised to give them, this land that he'd said all the way back with Abraham, I'm going to give this land to your family. They now were able to go in. But as you read through, as they begin to enter that promised land, and they're going over to fight against their first city, do you remember what their first city was they conquered? I bet you do. It was Jericho. But as they went across, and they had to cross over the Jordan River, and God split back the Jordan River, and they walked across on dry ground, just like they'd done at the Red Sea. But do you remember what God asked them to do when they got to the other side? They were supposed to go across, and one member of each tribe, as they walked across the dry riverbed, as God held back the waters, they were supposed to pick up a stone from the bottom of the river. When they got to the other side, they're supposed to take those stones, those 12 stones, one representing each tribe, and make a pillar, a stone monument. And you're thinking, why would you make a stone monument? Isn't it just going to fall over? Well, there was a purpose. God had said that I want you to remember what I have done. I want you to remember the miracle that I have worked for you. And that way, when their kids would come by and their kids would see this large stack of stones, and like all kids do, they ask mom and dad these hard questions. Mommy, what's that for? And mommy's like, I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I don't know. I wasn't there. Okay, how many of you have ever asked a question to mom and dad and they didn't know the answer? Or they faked an answer and you asked Siri later and the answer was completely different? Okay, shh, don't tell. All right, but the kids would come by and say, hey, mom, dad, what's that pile of stones for? Why do we have those 12 rocks there? And that was to help the children of Israel remember, oh, son, daughter, this is what God did for us. All throughout the nation of Israel, God would have them set up these monuments. God would have them set up these festivals and these holidays to remember important events. How God had worked in the nation of Israel. Sadly, we get to the beginning of the book of Judges, the exact next book after Joshua. You read the first couple chapters, and it says the people forgot. They forgot God, and they forgot his works. They forgot what he had done. And we see all throughout the book of Judges, the nation of Israel struggled with sin because they forgot. They did not remember who God was. We look at our world today, and we set up different things to help us remember. A couple weeks ago, we celebrated Memorial Day. Remembrance, memorial, to remember something. What? We're to memorialize and remember those who have died for our country. We are in a few weeks, we'll be celebrating July 4th. What are we celebrating there? We're celebrating and remembering the beginning of our country. In the fall, in November, we have Veterans Day to remember those who have fought. So we set up these things to celebrate people who have done things for us. But as Christians, how can we remember what our God has done for us? Well, we can do similar things. Maybe at your house, okay, you guys have pictures to help you remember events and things that happened. I remember when I was younger, when I was like 1, okay, so I don't remember it. I was too little to remember it, but my family went on a vacation out west, okay, to Yellowstone, to Mount Rushmore, the Badlands in South Dakota. They went out there. And you would think, if you're going on a family vacation, that you would have hundreds of pictures. Okay, now this is pre-digital camera era, but still hundreds of pictures of your family on this vacation, right? Well, my family does have hundreds of pictures, but it's of waterfalls and animals and flowers and sunset, but no people. We have very few pictures. My dad loves photography. My dad loves taking pictures of landscape and scenery, but not so much of people. And so we don't really have any pictures, but we remember. We look at those pictures to help us remember. So maybe it's a picture that you have set up of, hey, this was the time that I got to go to camp, and this is what God taught me at camp. Maybe you have a picture from camp when you went to Camp Kobiak or up to Camp Canaanland, and it's a picture of your cabin. Write on the back of it and say, hey, this is a decision I made for God. Then when you look at the picture on the front, you're like, oh, I remember that time. Flip it over and say, oh, yeah. And I remember that God taught me this. The easiest way and the best way for us to remember is to set up times to celebrate. Okay, it's why we celebrate Thanksgiving. What's the purpose of Thanksgiving? For us to be thankful to God for what He has done. Maybe at Thanksgiving, your family goes around the table and says, hey, this is what I'm thankful for. You know why we come to church? We come to church to remember what God has done. We go to church on Sunday because we're celebrating the day that Jesus Christ rose from the dead. We're remembering what God has done for us. So in your life, there's going to be two ways that you can help remember the good things that God does. First of all, you can think through and you can set up maybe special days or writing them down in a journal, praying back to God and saying, God, thank you for all that you've done for me. But you know the second best way that you can do to remember is if you tell other people. Come to school and be like, hey, guess what? Guess what God is teaching me? Guess what my Sunday school teacher said on Sunday? Guess what they said in junior church? Guess what pastor preached from the pulpit? I can't believe this. Or my family was praying for this and look what God did. Tell other people. In John chapter 9, one of the first people we see who does this is a man who was born blind. Jesus comes and heals that man and then goes away. Jesus never even tells him his name. And then that man goes all about this and says, hey, I was blind, but now I can see. Let me tell you about it. What about you? Do you ever tell people what God has done for you? If you're going to remember, you're going to want to write it down and pray it to God, but you're also going to want to tell other people. So I challenge you this week, try to think of someone that you can tell about what God has done for you.